The diner was quiet that morning, the kind of quiet that feels gentle, almost safe. Coffee steamed in white mugs, silverware clinked softly, and the smell of fresh pancakes hung in the air. No one expected that within minutes, kindness would be tested, cruelty would show its face, and one small act would change many lives forever. What started as an ordinary breakfast for an elderly widow turned into a moment that would remind everyone watching just how powerful kindness can be, and how strength doesn't always look the way we expect. Before we begin, if you enjoy emotional, inspiring stories like this, please take a second to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. This is Tales River, a place where real-life lessons flow through powerful stories. Your support helps us keep these stories alive. Margaret Wilson was 78 years old and had been a widow for almost a decade. Every Tuesday morning, she walked slowly to the same small diner on the corner of Maple Street. It wasn't fancy. The booths were cracked vinyl, and the bell over the door rang a little too loud. But it felt like home. Her husband, George, used to bring her there every week after his night shifts at the factory. Even after he passed, Margaret kept the routine. It made her feel close to him, like a piece of their life together still existed in that little diner. That morning, Margaret sat in her usual booth by the window. She wore a soft blue cardigan and held her purse tightly in her lap. Her hands shook slightly as she unfolded the menu, even though she already knew what she wanted: scrambled eggs, toast, and coffee with extra cream. The waitress, Jenny, smiled warmly at her. "The usual, Margaret?" she asked. Margaret smiled back. "Yes, dear. Thank you." A few booths away sat a man named Rick. He was loud, impatient, and already irritated before his food arrived. He kept tapping his fingers on the table and complaining about everything: the service, the noise, the weather. People noticed him, but no one said anything. Most just hoped he'd leave soon. When Jenny brought Margaret her coffee, her hand trembled, and a few drops spilled onto the table. Margaret quickly reached for a napkin, her face flushing with embarrassment. Rick noticed. "Seriously?" he snapped loudly. "Can't you even hold a cup?" The diner went quiet. Margaret froze. She looked up at Rick, confused and hurt. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I didn't mean to." Rick stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "People like you shouldn't even be out in public," he said, his voice full of anger. "Always slowing everyone down." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. She tried to stand, her knees weak. "Please," she whispered. "I'm just trying to have my breakfast." That's when it happened. Rick raised his hand and slapped Margaret across the face. The sound echoed through the diner. Margaret stumbled back into the booth, her glasses falling to the floor. For a moment, no one moved. Shock filled the room. Jenny screamed. Someone dropped a fork. Margaret touched her cheek, trembling, tears streaming down her face. Then something unexpected happened. Instead of anger, Margaret did something no one expected. She slowly bent down, picked up her glasses, and looked at Rick with calm, sad eyes. "I hope," she said quietly, "that whatever pain you're carrying finds peace someday." Those words cut deeper than any scream could have. Rick scoffed, suddenly unsure, and grabbed his jacket. "Whatever," he muttered, heading for the door, but he didn't make it out. The door opened, and a tall man stepped inside. He wore jeans, boots, and a simple jacket. His posture was calm but powerful, the kind that made people straighten up without knowing why. He looked around the diner and immediately saw Margaret, his mother, sitting there, shaken and crying. "Mom," he said softly. Margaret turned, her face lighting up with relief. "Daniel," she whispered. Daniel Wilson had just returned home after months away. He was a Navy SEAL, though he never talked about it. He was trained for combat, danger, and chaos. But nothing prepared him for seeing his mother hurt. He walked over and knelt beside her. "Who did this?" he asked gently. Margaret touched his arm. "It's okay," she said. "Please don't be angry." Rick tried to slip past them, but Daniel stood up. "Sir," Daniel said calmly. "Stop." Rick turned, puffing out his chest. "What?" You got a problem? Daniel looked him straight in the eye. His voice never rose. You assaulted my mother. The room was silent again. Rick laughed nervously. She deserved it. Old people need to learn. Before he could finish, Daniel stepped closer. Not threatening. Just present. My mother raised 3 kids alone while my father worked double shifts, Daniel said. She volunteers at the church. She feeds stray cats. She has more kindness in her little finger than most people have in their whole body. Rick swallowed hard. Daniel continued, I could hurt you. I'm trained to. But that wouldn't teach you anything. Instead, Daniel reached into his wallet and placed a bill on the table. This is for her breakfast. And yours. Sit down. Listen. Rick hesitated, confused. Slowly, he Saturday Daniel knelt again beside Margaret. Mom, are you okay? Margaret nodded. I am now. Daniel turned back to Rick. Look at her, he said. Really look. One day, if you're lucky, you'll reach her age. And when you do, I hope the world shows you more kindness than you showed her today. Rick's face changed. His anger faded into shame. His shoulders slumped. I didn't mean to, he said quietly. I've been having a hard time. Margaret spoke then. We all have hard times, she said gently. But we choose what we do with them. Tears filled Rick's eyes. I'm sorry, he said. I don't know why I did that. Daniel nodded. Apologize to her. Rick turned to Margaret. I'm so sorry. Truly. Margaret smiled faintly. I forgive you. The police arrived shortly after, called by another customer. Rick took responsibility and left peacefully, his head down. The diner slowly returned to life. People whispered. Some cried. Jenny brought Margaret a fresh coffee, free of charge. Daniel stayed with his mother, holding her hand. That day, a story spread, not about violence, but about grace. Margaret's kindness stopped a cycle of hate. Daniel's restraint showed true strength. And everyone who witnessed it left changed, because kindness isn't weakness. It's courage, and sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is choose compassion when the world expects anger. As Margaret finished her breakfast, she smiled at her son. Your father would be proud, she said. Daniel smiled back. I learned from you. And that simple moment reminded everyone watching that kindness, even in the face of cruelty, can change hearts, heal wounds, and make the world a little brighter. If this story moved you, let it remind you to be gentle. You never know the battles someone else is fighting. Spread kindness, it has more power than we realize.